Hello, this is Belinda Colleen, and I'm here to talk to you today about a factor in reselling that people discuss some, and I think we're all nervous about it in the business world, and that is AI robots and what they can and can't do. The title of this video is 5 Reasons AI Robots Can't Replace eBay Resellers. Now, I know they can do some things. We all realize that they're writing our descriptions, and we all know how great those sound. They sound like robots wrote them, and they make a little variance here and there, but it doesn't sound like a real human wrote those. In my past life, I was a writer, and honestly, a lot of writers have been replaced by AI, but it's purely an intellectual thing. And of course, the AI robots can't do a lot of the emotional writing. They might be able to at some point, but I don't. I think it's going to be a long time before there's a novel written by AI that's beautiful and elegant and just screams and breaks your heart and makes you feel all these emotions because they are robots. So it's very interesting. But the nice thing about reselling, and I find some comfort in this, especially after seeing what happened in AI and writing, is that there's too much physicality to reselling. Reselling is all over the place. There's so many different activities. There's just no way a robot could do that. I mean, I have to share a story that I read recently, and I don't know, you may or may not be aware of this, or you may have heard about it. You know, they've been trying for a long time now to have AI cars, self-driven cars, and a lot of it's, AI. And they do well to a degree. And this is just one car doing one thing. But because of all the variables involved, they keep having problems. People have been killed in them. And also, they can't seem to program it for all the different possibilities when you're driving. One thing that's been happening, and it kind of worried me a little bit because I would hate the idea of some kids getting killed when they're getting off the school bus. But the AI cars or self-driven cars don't know when there's a school bus. So they blow through that, and that's a problem. And I think, that's kind of indicative of what is happening in the reselling world. There's just too many variables. There's too many things that we do on a given day. Will we be able to use AI as resellers to help us? I think so, yeah. I think that we can quickly research maybe, and maybe it's a little faster than it would be. But we just do too many things in one day. And, just keeping up with trends. I mean, can you imagine how often they would have to reprogram to keep up with trends in, say, the 15 to 25-year-old or 15 to 30-year-old female fashion market? I mean, it's not feasible. And so here are a few of the reasons that I think that we are safe from ever being replaced by AI, at least in our lifetimes. I'm not going to talk about 200 years from now because who knows. But I'd say as long as most of us are going to be alive, I don't see it happening. I'm not saying they won't try. I think they will. But there'll always be so many different places to source and so many relationships that you build in your business, things that robots just don't do that well. I don't know about you, but I don't have any robot friends, and I don't plan on having any, although I did try to buy a little woofy puppy to be friends with my cat because I fell for it, and I watched the ads and I thought, that is the cutest thing. And they said, oh, this puppy's just like a real puppy, that they had it programmed so great, and that it, would sigh and sit by your side and would wag its tail, and just, but not crazy. So I bought that. And then I brought it home today because it came in the mail, and I showed it to my cat, and this little AI dog was nothing like they said it would be. Nothing. It just squeaked. It was like to me, it was like a remote controlled car, and it only had one speed. The thing just wagged its tail like crazy and barked, barked, barked. It was more of a squeak because it was about that big. And my cat just looked at it like it was crazy. And even though at first it scared my cat a little bit, after about 5 minutes, my cat sniffed it and realized that was not a real dog. And I didn't really know what to expect. I just wanted to see if my cat would like it because I've been thinking, oh, my cat's lonely or whatever. And actually, my mother got it for me for Christmas because we were talking about it, and it was her idea. And it was such a disappointment. And it just made me realize that I think we've all been told how AI is going to revolutionize everything. And I think it will revolutionize a lot of jobs, especially if it's just an intellectual job. So basically, it's a robot. Robots are good at thinking and seeing patterns, and you can program them with some information so that it can draw conclusions. But I don't think robots are going to be able to look at a top and say, you know, there's a little snag in it, or there's a tiny hole around the neckline, or I think that says extra large, but that really looks more like a medium, so I'm not going to buy it because when when I put the size on there, it's going to be off. So I'm not going to buy that. Or, that color is not popular this spring or whatever. Okay, my cat's about to jump on me, so I'm going to, because I'm allergic to my cat, I have to put something in my lap so that when he jumps in my lap, he won't scratch me. I know, I'm crazy for having a cat that I'm allergic to. And now I'm going to get up close and personal with you again, so it doesn't feel like we're so far apart. And he may or may not jump in my lap, but at least now I don't have to think about it. Okay, so these are some of the things that I've come up with. Now, they do write descriptions, and they're not bad. I don't think they're great, but they're not terrible. So, I mean, if you're lazy, you can always go that route. I have a few times. But in a given day, these are the kinds of things that I do as an eBay reseller. And you may or may not be doing these too, but I have a feeling if you've been doing it for very long, you've done all of these things many times. One of the first things I do when I wake up in the morning is I look at my sales and I wrap the things that have to be shipped out. Now, most of the time, that's not a hard thing to do. With clothes, I usually use poly mailers, and I get them, I put them in the poly mailer. I decide what kind of poly mailer I need to use. I look over the item one more time just to make sure it's still in great shape. I iron it or fluff it out in the dryer if it's gotten a little wrinkled while I stored it. But actually, the first thing I do is find it. I have to go and find it in my inventory, which is a hassle. And it's actually one of my least favorite things to do. So I'm trying to imagine a robot if it was a robot, it would probably be in a factory or whatever, because it would be a big company hiring an AI robot to do these things. And we know that there are AI robots working in factories. So you could probably have a robot doing one thing, like maybe retrieving things from inventory. Okay, so you've got that. So I'm not saying that's not possible, but I'm saying as we go through the list, it's going to get less and less possible. Okay, so maybe a robot can retrieve my item that I've sold. I don't know how well it's going to look it over to make sure it's still in great shape, but it could probably load it into a poly mailer. I'm sure that's possible. Okay, so let's say it does that. And then it's got to weigh it and put postage on it. Now, I don't know, maybe a different AI robot would do that, or maybe a human would do that. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just, as we go through this list, it's going to seem more or much less likely that this is going to be something that a robot can do. Okay, because you can program a robot to do certain things, but I can't imagine programming a robot to do everything that we do, and not anytime soon anyway. Okay, if they still can't get the cars to drive themselves, and I know there are some self-driving cars, and a lot of them in the bigger cities too, and I've actually seen one here, and I was stunned by how it looked. But they still haven't perfected that, and that's just driving. It's not, customer service. It's not looking at a blouse and deciding if it's wrinkled, if it's dirty, if it's got any blemishes to it, if it matches the one that was sold, just in case it was the wrong one was put in inventory. These are all subtle things that I would really be curious to find out if they could program a robot to do all these little subtle things. And I'm not anti-technology. I'm really not. But I do think that there are going to be professions that will be safe, and it's going to be professions that are very physical and that are varied. I don't think they're going to have robot plumbers going out to people's houses and checking their plumbing and deciding on what needs to happen, and then going out to the truck and then ordering parts. I don't think there's a robot that's going to be able to do that. It's too much motion. It's too much interaction with humans. And that's the same kind of reason I don't think eBay resellers or in our lifetime have to worry too much about AI, other than as a tool for certain aspects of the business. Now, after I've mailed off my stuff that I sold from the night before, then I usually go shopping. And of course, you can do online shopping, and that's where I could imagine AI getting involved, is doing online shopping. And basically, I mean, there are already all kinds of things set up so that people can quickly see things that are great deals that they want to buy, and they can purchase them. That's already happening to a degree. Again, the nuances are lost on the robots, but to a degree, I can see them doing online shopping. Where I can't see them doing is going to garage sales and flea markets and thrift stores, setting up relationships with possible consignment deals, maybe setting up relationships with wholesalers. I can't see a robot doing that anytime soon. Okay, there's just too many different things. Now, if you had a super linear business and you were only buying things online, I could see you programming, using AI to help you do that. I can see you using AI to help you write a description. You could probably even use AI to a degree, as we kind of do on eBay, to decide on what's a fair price. Although, when I look at the pricing that they suggest, a lot of times that's off, because they don't always factor in trends. They don't always factor in color and size, all those things. Like in certain brands, the larger sizes sell well, but the smaller sizes don't sell well. That's what I'm talking about. There's just so many variables that you have in your head from selling these items, or from researching them, from watching YouTube videos. And I continuously, every day, try to learn new things. And I do, for the most part, if I'm awake and I'm tuned in at all to my business, which I normally am. And that's going to be the kind of thing. How are you going to program that robot to take all this information that's flying around constantly and process it? I mean, I know to a degree, like when, the writing aspect of it, it can do a lot, and it can take a lot of the stuff that's online, but it's got to be online already. And things that are subtle, like styles and things like that, and even the area of the country that you're in, for instance, makes a difference in what you're going to sell based on, how far you're going to be shipping. And I've used this example on another one of my videos, but I'm not buying ski gear in Georgia, because not that many people in this part of the country snow ski, I'm talking about. There are some, but not that many. So if you're going to go with the numbers and the odds, it's harder to find ski equipment in this part of the country. I'm not saying I don't find it, because I do. But in fact, I just sold, and this isn't ski equipment, but it's another hobby, a piece of equipment that I wouldn't think would sell much in Atlanta because we're so close to Florida and warm waters. But even though some people wear them there too, but I sold a wetsuit, and then I sold it to a guy in Oregon. So he's in the Pacific Ocean, it's cold, and he needs that wetsuit probably to surf or do whatever he's doing with it. So I know people on the West Coast use wetsuits a lot, even in the summer, because even in the summer, the water's cold out there. On the East Coast, it's hot, it's warm. So anyway, I don't think a robot would figure that out. Not for a while anyway. And it's the kind of thing where if you were to think about or sit down and try to think of a way to program a robot, if you were going to program a robot to do your job as a reseller, think of all the things you'd have to tell it, and think of all the things that would be left out by mistake, even as someone that's doing it. And then think of how are you going to get this robot to make relationships with human beings for networking purposes, for collaborating in different ways to help each other. It's just, those things just aren't going to happen. And even though we might be competing with online people that are really just shopping online, I could see that happening first. We still have this other whole huge world, including online, where we can source from and where we can sell. I mean, a lot of people, that are resellers, they don't just stop at platforms like eBay or Poshmark or Depop. They're selling on Facebook Marketplace, which takes a little more interaction with the customer. And well, even eBay does. In fact, one of the things I have to do constantly, and I'm sure you do too, and this is something I think it would be hard for AI to handle, although they could at certain levels. But like, here's some of the questions that I've gotten in the last couple of weeks. Okay. Let's see, where are my questions? Okay. Does this blouse or does that blouse come from a pet-free environment? See, obviously this person had some pet hair issues at some point. Well, I've got a cat. So I said, I roll all of my items before I send it out. However, I do have a 30-day return policy if you are unhappy, but I roll everything. But I do have an animal, so I can't guarantee you there's not one little pet hair on there. But it's one cat. I only have one cat. It's not like I have a house full of cats or a house full of dogs like some people do. And they went ahead and bought the top and then gave me a good recommendation. I was honest, but those are the kind of things you could program a robot to answer that question if it knew the answer. I mean, anyway, that's one example. Another example was, I've got allergies. This lady told me, I've got allergies and I need to know that I think it was a pair of slacks haven't been washed in laundry detergents that have a fragrance to them. Well, so I answered her honestly, and I had to think about it, because I wash the clothes that come in here in fragrance free, because I know that's an issue for a lot of people, and it is for me. In fact, I have like hives sometimes if I get into clothes that have too much stuff in them. So I totally felt, empathetic towards her and wanted to make sure she was happy. But I said, honestly, I said, I haven't washed it in anything with fragrance. And I said, I gave it the sniff test after you asked that question to see if I could smell fragrance on it. And I can't. I said, but it is a pre-owned item. And I said, there is a possibility that it's been washed in chemicals that might upset you. I don't know. But I said, I can't smell anything. And that was another happy ending. She bought it. She didn't give me any review at all, which sometimes they don't. But she never returned it. So I'm assuming everything went fine. So, the customer service aspects to this business are crazy, and there's a lot of them, and even knowing when you get a weird vibe off someone, like I've had people where I thought, this customer is going to be so much trouble that I just don't want to deal with them. And I even had a customer one time, and I thought I just had this feeling. I don't do it very often. I think I've done it twice in 2 years. But with all the conversation going back and forth, I just took it down. And then they asked, and I thought, I don't want to sell to them. And I have a feeling they're going to end up buying it, and then it's going to be this big hassle. And it was an expensive item that they were asking 10,000 questions on. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can just smell the return, and they haven't even bought it yet. So I just took it, I unlisted it for like a month. And then I put it back on because I didn't want to deal with that. Now, that may not have been the best thing to do. I don't even know. But I just think there are things that are intuitive that you just pick up on and that a robot's not ever going to pick up on. Whether that was a good decision or not, the robot wouldn't think about that. I'm pretty sure, well, if they ask 25 questions, then this is going to be a problem buyer. So anyway, I just didn't want to deal with them. They were very negative. And so, this is interpersonal relationships and human interactions are things that robots will always have trouble with, and so based on that, I think that's one big reason, customer service, that robots, they can give a pat, sure, they can just spit out an answer. They can be programmed to answer certain easy questions, just like they try to do now with all the Q&As so that they can eliminate customer service almost. Because, they're trying to get rid of all the people in customer service these days so that, it's cheaper. But I think in this business, because there's so many ways that we are working with other people, that it's going to be very, very difficult to replace us. And listing items, how are they going to measure? How are they going to decide if something is peach or pink? How are they going to decide if, something is high-waisted or sheer? I mean, how are they going to program all that in? I mean, all the words that you use to describe your item, I can see that how they could do certain things, but even just the measuring. I mean, maybe there'll be a machine someday where you throw a pair of jeans in and it measures it. I don't know. But I find it interesting and amusing to think about how they could do that. So those are some of the things. Those are 5 of the main ways that I just don't see it working out. And, testing items. That would be interesting. Now, I don't sell technology that much because I had some bad experiences with it, and because testing was a problem for me because I wasn't always sure I was testing everything I needed to. But some items that I still might pick up occasionally, like I've sold a really nice coffee maker. I sold one that was returned, but I sold one that was really great, and I ran coffee through it and the whole bit. And because, I'm comfortable with coffee makers, even though I'm not comfortable with everything else that's technology oriented. And, kitchen gadgets and things like that. And I don't know, that would be, how could you possibly program a computer to test all these things, and could it reliably test it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could probably call some of my buddies. I went to Georgia Tech, which is kind of funny because I'm one of the least technical persons you'll ever meet. But there's people I could call, I'm sure, and ask, could a robot do this? But I'm just saying, with all the activities associated with reselling, I think our jobs are very, very, very safe. And even though we can use tools to make our life better, we just do too many different things, and we make deals, and we have relationships with suppliers and sources and people that we might do some co-signing with, and all of these things, and the robots just aren't going to be able to do it. They're not. So Will it happen? Will it be tested? Oh my gosh, you know it will be. And there are some huge, now that reselling has gotten so popular, there's some huge companies that are going to try to automate as much as they can. And they're going to be big, and they're going to have, just like the dry cleaner machines, they'll have thousands and thousands of shirts that'll be going around, and they'll be able to pull it off for their inventory or whatever. And they'll get big, and they'll automate as much as they can, but there's still going to be somebody running that show that's going to have to deal with the automation, deal with the changes, worry about trends. And it's the subtle stuff that's going to, what makes a shirt feminine, what makes a shirt whimsy goth, uh, you know, I really don't know how a machine is going to pick up on that. I just don't know. I mean, I'm having trouble keeping up with it myself. And I actually know what sheer looks like. I know what linen feels like. I know what cotton feels like. I know what silk feels like. I wonder if that robot will know that. I mean, these are the things I keep thinking about. So I just think sometimes it's fun to process information out loud and to share my thoughts. I'm certainly no rocket scientist and AI expert, but I do think that certain kinds of people that move around a lot and do a lot of physical activities and mental activities that have a lot of subtleties in customer service are safe. I think the plumbers, the electricians, interesting that we're in that group, and the people like us that are out making deals and moving around a lot, I think we're safe for a long, long time. And that makes me feel great, because honestly, I do think there's a huge segment of the population that are running scared and worried. The poor kids that are getting out of college now that spent a fortune, and their parents spent a fortune, and I feel for them, are getting out, and they're coming into a world where they don't know how long they'll have in an industry. We're all going to be adapting. And that's why, even though there's some things I don't love about reselling, I'm sure that will be true with any business I got into. And I feel like in so many ways, we're going to be immune to a lot of the nonsense with the AI for a long time. Anyway, just wanted to get that off my chest and share that as, I think, some good news for resellers. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you feel inclined, I'd love it if you gave me a thumbs up or subscribed. I would really appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.